Wealth often acts as a magnet for respect and admiration in societies worldwide. The affluent are frequently placed on a pedestal, their accomplishments lauded, and their opinions given disproportionate weight. This deference stems from a belief that wealth signifies competence and intelligence. However, this association often masks the complex realities of wealth acquisition. The pursuit of wealth can foster a predatory instinct in some. For some, the wealthy become targets for exploitation. This can manifest as criminal activity, from petty theft to elaborate schemes. This predatory perspective underscores the darker side of societal fascination with affluence. Wealth is not inherently synonymous with virtue, and its pursuit can lead to both positive and negative outcomes. History is replete with examples of powerful nations exploiting less powerful ones to amass wealth and resources. The era of Western colonialism stands as a stark illustration of this predatory dynamic. European powers, driven by a thirst for resources and dominion, embarked on centuries-long campaigns of conquest and subjugation. The African continent, rich in natural resources such as gold, diamonds, and rubber, became a prime target for European greed. Colonial powers carved up the continent, imposing their rule and extracting vast riches, often through brutal means. This exploitation left lasting scars on the social, political, and economic fabric of African nations. India, with its vast population and abundant resources, suffered a similar fate under British colonial rule. The British East India Company, initially a trading enterprise, gradually seized control of large swaths of India, exploiting its people and resources for the benefit of the British Empire. This exploitation had a devastating impact on India's economy and contributed to widespread poverty and famine. Slavery, a brutal system of forced labor and human subjugation, has existed in various forms throughout history. While often associated with the transatlantic slave trade, it is crucial to acknowledge the diverse manifestations of slavery and their distinct social implications. The transatlantic slave trade, driven by European demand for labor on plantations in the Americas, stands as a particularly abhorrent chapter in human history. Millions of Africans were forcibly transported across the Atlantic in horrific conditions, subjected to unimaginable cruelty and treated as mere chattel. This system of slavery was inherently racialized, with Africans deemed inferior and subjected to a particularly brutal form of enslavement. In contrast, other historical forms of slavery, such as those practiced in the Muslim world, often differed in their social dynamics. While still exploitative, these systems often allowed for greater social mobility among slaves and did not necessarily rely on racial hierarchies. For example, slaves in the Ottoman Empire could rise to positions of power and influence, and manumission was a relatively common practice. While overt colonialism has passed, exploitation persists in modern forms. Powerful corporations and financial institutions perpetuate inequality and exploit vulnerable populations. The IMF and World Bank have been criticized for policies that exacerbate poverty in developing nations. These institutions often prioritize wealthy nations, trapping developing countries in debt. Resource extraction from developing countries fuels modern exploitation. The Democratic Republic of Congo, rich in cobalt, faces exploitation by multinational corporations. This exploitation harms local communities, causing environmental and human rights abuses. We must demand accountability from those who perpetuate exploitation. Corporations must be held responsible, and institutions must prioritize the vulnerable. Only through collective commitment to justice can we end exploitation.